Let's analyze how Nanami Kento wraps his hand in Jujutsu Kaisen and how that applies to animation, cosplay, and martial arts. And for anyone who's new here, I am a Nanami Kento cosplayer who loves nitpicking at details in general. I've done various martial arts for about 17 years of my life, and I do all of my own editing. So even though I'm really not an animator, I have done art lessons and manga lessons specifically, and I use those techniques in my videos. So this is all somewhat familiar territory for me. We first see Nanami wrap his hand in Season 1, Episode 10, Idol Transfiguration, except we don't actually see him wrap his hand. And this is not only accurate to the manga, but it's something very common in the anime and manga world in general. We'll see techniques, energy blasts, animation sequences, but we won't actually see the full evolution of those sequences. We as the audience are left to just fill in the blanks. So every now and then when the animation or when Gege gets criticized for not showing things, I find it a little funny because it's not the first, nor second, nor third time that Gege has just not shown the entirety of something. Although I do understand that sometimes it really sucks to not see the entirety of something. But for cosplay, this was a problem because I realized I wasn't really sure how to match his exact look. And I didn't realize until my first cosplay photo shoot when I was looking up a reference and I just had to mess around and do whatever. But after that, I decided to just make my own method. You'll start with a little bit of the small end hanging down from your palm, then wrap the large part around 1, 2, 3 times. And on the 4th time, you'll cross over your wrist, leaving just enough to tuck under and get those dingles. Personally, this is my second favorite method. The pros are that it looks sick, it allows you to do some really cool tightening poses, and it does a decent job of staying in place because you have a knot of some sort. The cons are that it can be a little bit bulky, the flaps can cause some sensory issues, and the flaps can also get in the way and make it hard to hold things like your blade. It's also a fantastic way to tear your tie. This is like my 3rd or 4th tie that I've gone through because of the stress that it puts on your tie. And animation-wise, it makes things really awkward to deal with. When I first tried to create cursed energy on my own, I realized that I not only had to account for the physics of my arm, I had to account for the physics of the cursed energy, and then I had to account for the physics of the dangly pieces. And that's actually why the designers of Katara from Avatar: The Last Airbender gave her hair loopies instead of having dangling strands of hair. It was much easier for them to animate it. So I'm speculating that's why Gege doesn't really draw the dangling straps of tie, because tightening things, whether it's a headband or a tie, always makes you look tough. But at the same time, he's probably like, I'm not doing all that, I'm not going to draw that. But that pattern does stay consistent with the animation as well. The second method is my favorite method and we see in Jujutsu Kaisen 0. And this method clearly used anime physics for Nanami to wrap his hand, so I also have to make up something for this one as well. For this style, you don't want any of the tie dangling, and you'll pretty much just crisscross the entire time. And depending on how you crisscross, that will change how you tuck the tie at the very end. It stays pretty snug, it's sleek, it's compact, and if it comes undone, it's pretty easy to fasten, and you don't have to worry about any loose ends when you're editing. Final method is my least favorite method. Season 2, Episode 12, Dull Knife. In the manga, again, we aren't actually shown how he wraps his hand, but in the anime, we're shown that he actually just does a basic hand wrap, which in my opinion looks ugly. No shade if you're a cosplayer and you do this, you can always do what you want, that's just my personal preference. I will admit it does look cool when he's wrapping his hand though, because you can tell how serious he is. But it's annoying because you have to constantly keep your hand clenched, and after 1 to 2 hours shoot, trust me, you will be sore. And it's kind of unstable, but it's accessible. When you're in a pinch, you just have to, I noticed that they have him tightening his tie, which kind of doesn't make sense for this style of wrap, but it feels like they just did it to stay consistent with the manga, because you can't just skip out on the scene where he's looking awesome. But one thing I didn't quite understand before JJK 0 was released was why Nanami's knuckles weren't covered. As a martial artist, I immediately recognized that Nanami was using his tie as a hand wrap, and hand wraps help to stabilize your joints and distribute the force that you're taking when you punch something. So why wouldn't his knuckles be covered, aside from it being really impractical in real life because it's a tie? And with the way that Gege draws and writes, it just feels like a detail that he wouldn't miss. And he didn't, in the manga at least. Nanami's knuckles are covered in the manga and JJK 0, but not in Season 1 or Season 2. So I personally wonder if it was a mistake translating from manga to anime, or if it was done intentionally for reasons I'm unaware of. As a martial artist and someone who has done basic martial arts tricking, I'm often aware of the inconsistencies and the small things when martial arts is used in movies and animation. For example, when Aang was meditating in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action, for some reason he didn't make a proper fist when he was meditating. And honestly, it kind of bothered me. Since it's not an action sequence, maybe there's no stunt coordinator or martial arts expert there to correct his form, or maybe it's some sort of meditation pose I'm unaware of. And that's how I felt about Nanami's knuckles not really being covered. I've also noticed that sometimes the coolest martial arts sequence that I've seen being animated are done by people who actually do martial arts or martial arts tricking, because they have the nuance of that movement and know exactly how things work. And then the vice versa might be true. If someone's not aware of all the details of martial arts and fighting, they might miss small details. But that's not a guarantee. However, in real life, I don't mind my knuckles not being covered because again, it's just really not practical with a tie. It just gets very messy. This video was dedicated to the Nanami simps, the animators, the people who love random details, martial artists, and the cosplayers who are like, how the heck do you do this? Have a great day.